I want to tell you something that changed everything for me, and I know it will change everything for you too. There was a moment in my life when I was standing in my tiny apartment in New York City, looking at bills I couldn't pay, feeling the weight of lack pressing down on my chest like a heavy stone, and I realized something that felt like lightning striking through my entire being. The thing that was keeping me poor wasn't my circumstances. It wasn't the economy. It wasn't my past mistakes. It was the words I was speaking every single day. It was the invisible law I didn't yet understand, the law that governs everything in this universe, whether we believe in it or not. That day, I discovered that my word was my wand, and I had been using it to create exactly what I didn't want. And darling, if you're watching this right now, feeling stuck, feeling like wealth is something that happens to other people but never to you, I need you to hear this. You have been given the same power I discovered. The same power that turned my life from struggle to overflow. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to use it. You see, most people have it completely backward. They think that when their circumstances change, then they'll speak differently. When the money comes, then they'll feel abundant. When the opportunity arrives, then they'll feel worthy. But the law doesn't work that way. The law works from the inside out, not the outside in. Your word is the creative force. Your word goes before you and prepares your way. Every single thing you see in your physical world right now, the money in your bank account or the lack of it, the opportunities that come to you or pass you by, all of it began as a word, a thought, a belief that you spoke into existence. And this isn't just pretty spiritual talk, my dear. This is the most practical, powerful truth you'll ever encounter. I spent years studying metaphysics, the ancient wisdom traditions, the invisible laws that the mystics knew and the wealthy understand. And what I discovered was this. There is a supply for every demand. The universe is not a place of limitation. God is not a stingy banker rationing out good to a chosen few. The divine mind is infinite abundance, and it's flowing toward you right now, in this very moment. But here's what most people don't understand. That flow can only reach you through the channel of your own consciousness. Your beliefs are either opening the way or blocking it completely. Your words are either magnets drawing your good to you, or they're walls keeping it away. And most people, without realizing it, spend their entire lives building those walls with their own tongues. They say they want prosperity, but their conversation is full of lack. They say they desire health, but they rehearse their symptoms to everyone who will listen. They claim they're ready for love, but they speak of past betrayals as if they're current realities, and then they wonder why nothing changes. I learned this the hard way. I used to think I could hold one picture in my mind and speak another with my mouth. I thought my private thoughts were what mattered, and my words were just commentary, harmless, meaningless, just talk. But there is no just talk. Every word is a decree. Every statement is a command sent into the invisible substance that surrounds you, and that substance has no choice but to obey. I remember a woman who came to me absolutely convinced she would lose her home. The circumstances certainly looked that way. The bills were real, the notices were real, the fear was overwhelming, and every time we spoke, she would say, "I know I'm going to lose everything. I can feel it. It's only a matter of time." I stopped her one day and said, "You're absolutely right. You will lose everything because you've decreed it. You've sent that command out into the universe, and the universe is loyal. It will give you exactly what you've claimed." She looked at me, stunned. She thought she was just being realistic. She thought she was preparing herself for the inevitable. She didn't realize she was actually creating the inevitable with every fearful word. So we changed her decree. Instead of, "I'm going to lose my home," she began to say, "Infinite Spirit revealed to me the perfect plan for my complete security." Instead of rehearsing disaster, she practiced declaring her good. It felt awkward at first. It felt like lying, but she stayed with it. Within 3 weeks, money came from a source she never anticipated. A distant relative. An unexpected inheritance. The exact amount she needed, down to the dollar. Was it coincidence? No, it was law. The same law that would have manifested her loss instead manifested her supply, the moment she turned her words around. And here's what most people miss about this law. It doesn't care about your circumstances. It doesn't matter if your bank account is empty, if your body is sick, if your relationships are broken. The law responds to one thing only: the nature of your word. You see, We've been taught to speak according to what we see. The world tells us to be realistic, to face facts. But I'm telling you now, speaking from what you see is the surest way to keep seeing more of what you don't want. I had a student once who was losing her home. The foreclosure notice had arrived. Her friends said, "Be realistic, you need to accept this and move on." And she almost did. She almost packed her bags and surrendered. But something in her rebelled against that defeat. She came to me and said, "What do I do? The facts are screaming at me." I told her what I'm telling you. The facts are not final. They're simply the result of yesterday's thinking. If you want tomorrow to look different, you must speak different words today. Words that agree with what you want, not with what you see. She began to declare, "Infinite Spirit, this house is mine by divine right. I am unmortgaged and free. There is no loss in spirit, and spirit is the only reality." Every time fear knocked on her door with another threatening letter, she answered with those words. Not once, but dozens of times a day. She saturated her consciousness with the truth she wanted to see made manifest. 3 weeks before the final deadline, a relative she hadn't spoken to in years called her out of the blue. A forgotten inheritance had just been settled. The exact amount she needed appeared to the penny. Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in causation. She set a cause in motion with her word, and the effect had to follow. And that's what most people miss. They think the word is just decoration, just positive thinking, just fluff on top of the hard work. But the word times is times the work. The word is the seed, the soil, and the water all at once. Jesus didn't say, "Think carefully about a fig tree." He spoke times to times the fig tree. He commanded it, and it withered. Not because he was special, and you're not, but because he understood a law that most of us have forgotten. You are using words every single day, every single hour, and most of them, they're working against you. I can't afford that. I'm so tired of this. Nothing ever works out for me. I'm just not lucky. Every time you say it, you're sending out a messenger into the invisible world. And that messenger is loyal. It doesn't question you. It doesn't say, "Are you sure you want this?" It just goes out and finds the thing that matches your words. It brings back proof that you were right. That's why the woman who always says, "Men are untrustworthy," keeps meeting untrustworthy men. That's why the man who says, "I never have enough money," never has enough money. They think they're describing reality, but they're times creating times it. I've watched this happen over and over. A woman came to me once, desperate. She'd been trying to manifest a new job for months. She did affirmations. She visualized. She made vision boards. Nothing happened. I asked her one question. "What do you say when someone asks how the job search is going?" She blinked. "I say it's been really hard, that the market is terrible, that no one's hiring." There it was. She was affirming failure every time she opened her mouth. Her vision board said one thing, her words said another, and words always win. I told her, "From now on you say, 'The perfect job is already mine. I'm just waiting for the phone to ring.'" She looked at me like I was insane. "But that's not true." "It will be," I said, "if you say it." 3 weeks later, the phone rang. A job she didn't even apply for. Better pay, better hours, better everything. Magic? No, law. And this law works with mathematical precision. You don't need to believe in it for it to work. You don't need to understand quantum physics for gravity to keep your feet on the ground. The law of attraction responds to your inner speech, whether you call it prayer, affirmation, or just talking to yourself in traffic. I had a woman write to me once. She said, "Florence, I've been saying affirmations for 3 months. Nothing's changed. This doesn't work for me." So I asked her, "What do you say the rest of the day?" Silence. Then she admitted it. "Well, I say the affirmations for 5 minutes in the morning, but the rest of the day I complain about my job, worry about money, and tell my sister how nothing ever works out for me. You see the problem? 5 minutes of planting seeds, 23 hours and 55 minutes of pouring poison on the soil. The universe doesn't reward your 5 minutes of effort. It responds to your dominant vibration, your consistent inner conversation, the story you tell most often. And here's what nobody wants to hear. Your subconscious doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't give you credit for trying. It doesn't say, "Oh, poor dear, you had a difficult childhood. so I'll manifest abundance for you. Anyway, no, it simply records and reflects. If you consistently speak poverty, you'll live poverty. If you consistently speak limitation, you'll experience limitation. If you consistently speak unworthiness, the universe says, "Your wish is my command," and matches your frequency. This is why I'm so passionate about watchfulness. About guarding your inner speech like a warrior guards a fortress. Every thought is a prayer, every word is a command, every feeling is a magnet. You are always manifesting. The question isn't whether you're using this law. The question is what you're using it to create. Most people are unconsciously manifesting their worst fears on repeat, then wondering why life feels like a nightmare. But when you wake up to this power, when you become deliberate about your inner speech, everything changes. I remember the exact moment I stopped being a victim to my thoughts and became their master. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was sitting in my living room, caught in the middle of a financial storm that had been raging for months. The bills were piling up, the bank account was dwindling, and I could feel that familiar panic rising in my chest. But this time, instead of spiraling into the usual catastrophic thinking, I caught myself mid-thought. I heard my inner voice saying, "I can't afford this. There's never enough." And suddenly, I saw it. These weren't just passive observations. These were commands I was giving to the universe, orders I was placing with the cosmic kitchen. I was speaking poverty into existence with every worried thought, every fearful word. That's when I made a decision that changed everything. I decided to flip the script completely. Instead of narrating what I didn't want, I started declaring what I did want as if it were already true. I looked at those bills and said, out loud, "Money flows to me easily and constantly. I am surrounded by abundance." Now let me be clear, this wasn't positive thinking. This wasn't me trying to feel better while secretly believing the opposite. This was me recognizing that my words were creating my reality and I needed to change the blueprint I was working from. The results weren't mystical or magical in some fairy tale sense. They were practical. Within 2 weeks, a client I hadn't heard from in months reached out with a major project. An unexpected check arrived in the mail from a source I'd completely forgotten about. Someone offered to pay me for work I'd done months earlier that I'd written off as a loss. Were these coincidences? Absolutely not. These were the natural consequences of changing my inner speech. When I stopped telling the story of lack and started speaking the language of abundance, the universe had no choice but to rearrange circumstances to match my words. This is the mechanics of manifestation that most people miss. They think it's about vision boards and wishful thinking, but it's actually about disciplined speech, both inner and outer. Every time you say, "I can't," you're closing doors. Every time you say, "I am," you're opening them. So here's a practice that changed everything for me, and I watched it transform countless students. Conscious speech rehearsal. Before you speak about anything significant in your life, pause. Take one breath. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say building the reality I want or the one I fear? I worked with a woman whose marriage was struggling. Every time someone asked how things were at home, she'd launch into a litany of complaints. "He never listens. We can't communicate. I don't know how much longer I can do this." She thought she was just venting, being honest with friends. But here's what was actually happening. Every retelling was a ritual. She was consecrating the problems, making them more solid, more real. The words weren't releasing the tension, they were reinforcing the pattern. I asked her to try something radical for 30 days. Whenever someone asked about her marriage, she would say, even if it felt untrue in that moment, "We're working through some things, but I can see us growing closer." That's it. No elaborate fiction, just a simple redirection toward the outcome she wanted. She resisted at first. It felt dishonest, like she was lying to herself and others. But 3 weeks in, something shifted. Her husband came home one evening and said, "You've been different lately, softer somehow. It makes me want to try harder." She hadn't changed her behavior dramatically. She hadn't enrolled them in therapy or had a big confrontation. She'd simply stopped speaking the marriage into its grave. The words we use about our relationships, our health, our finances, they're not passive descriptions. They're active spells, and most of us are unconsciously cursing the very things we claim to love. Now, I'm not suggesting toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing. If you're in genuine danger, speak up, get help. This isn't about silencing truth, but there's a difference between useful truth and destructive repetition. Saying, "I'm in pain and need support" once to someone who can help, that's useful. Saying, "My life is falling apart" 17 times a day to anyone who'll listen, that's casting spells against yourself. Every word is a choice. Every sentence is a vote for the world you're creating. And here's what nobody tells you. The universe doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care that you didn't mean it that way. It doesn't care that you were just venting or being realistic or telling the truth as you see it. The universe is a perfect recording device. It takes your words at face value and says, "Your wish is my command." You complain about being broke while standing in line for coffee? Congratulations, you just ordered more broke. You tell your friend you always attract the wrong people? The universe heard that as a preference and starts arranging introductions. You laugh and say, "I'm so bad with money." You've just signed a contract with poverty, and the universe is an excellent accountant. This is why the ancient teachers were obsessed with the power of the tongue. Not because they were superstitious, because they understood something we've forgotten in our age of casual speech and constant commentary. They knew that the tongue is the rudder of the ship. You can have the wind in your sails, you can have the finest vessel, but if the rudder is pointed toward the rocks, that's where you're going. I watch people pray for abundance in the morning and declare bankruptcy over lunch. I watch them affirm health at sunrise and diagnose themselves with diseases by dinner, and they wonder why nothing changes. They wonder why their affirmations don't work. It's because you can't plant roses in the morning and water weeds all day and expect a garden. Every conversation is a watering session, every text message, every internal monologue. You're either watering your dreams or drowning them. There's no neutral. There's no just talking. You're always creating. The question is, what are you creating? And I know what you're thinking, but I can't just pretend everything is perfect when it's not. Nobody said pretend. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you to stop being a volunteer prosecutor in the case against your own life. I'm asking you to stop testifying against yourself. I'm asking you to be at least as kind in your speech to yourself as you would be to a stranger's child. You wouldn't walk up to a kid and say, "You're terrible at everything and you'll never succeed." But you say it to yourself 20 times before breakfast. You wouldn't tell someone else's daughter, "You're so stupid, you're so ugly, you're so worthless." But it's your morning mantra. There's a violence in the way we talk to ourselves. And we don't even notice it anymore, because it's become the soundtrack of our lives. It hums beneath everything we do. You walk into a meeting, and before anyone speaks, you've already told yourself you're going to sound stupid. You look in the mirror, and the first thought isn't neutral, it's an attack. You make a small mistake, and the response isn't proportionate, it's devastating. And here's what I need you to understand. Your subconscious mind is listening to every single word. It doesn't argue. It doesn't fact-check. It just accepts. When you say, "I always fail," your subconscious says "noted" and begins arranging circumstances to prove you right. When you say, "Nothing ever works out for me," your inner creative power hears that as an instruction and starts closing doors. You think you're just venting. You think you're just being realistic. But you're actually giving orders to the most powerful force in your life. Your word is your wand. That's not poetry, that's mechanics. Every time you speak, you're selecting from infinite possibility and collapsing it into form. You're a sculptor working with the clay of consciousness. And most people are unconsciously sculpting disasters. They're speaking fear into existence. They're affirming limitation. They're blessing their problems and cursing their dreams. I watch people pray for abundance while speaking poverty all day long. I can't afford that. Money never stays with me. I'm always broke. And then they wonder why the universe doesn't answer their prayers. The universe is answering, it's just answering the words you speak most frequently, with the most feeling. You prayed once with hope, but you've affirmed lack 1,000 times with conviction. Which instruction do you think your subconscious is following? This is why gratitude works, not because it's polite, but because it shifts your speech. When you say "thank you for this perfect right action," you're speaking the language of fulfillment. When you say "I give thanks for the divine solution," you're instructing your subconscious to find it. You're not begging some external deity, you're activating the God power within you. You're aligning your words with the truth of infinite supply, infinite intelligence, infinite love. And here's what happens next. This is where it gets beautiful. When you stop resisting, when you stop fighting against what is, When you stop declaring your lack, the universe can finally move on your behalf. I knew a woman who came to me devastated. Her husband had left her, not just left, vanished with another woman, leaving her with 3 children and virtually no money. She was bitter. Oh, she had every right to be, by human standards. She would sit in my parlor and rehearse the injustice of it all, over and over, like a terrible song she couldn't stop singing. "He ruined my life," she would say. "He destroyed everything. How will I survive? How will I feed my children?" I let her speak. Sometimes people need to empty the vessel before they can fill it with something new. But then I said to her, gently, "My dear, as long as you keep telling that story, it will keep being true. Your words are your wand. What are you creating with them?" She looked at me as if I'd slapped her. "You think I'm creating this nightmare? I think you're sustaining it," I said. "There is a divine plan for your life that includes abundance, joy, and right relationships. But you cannot receive it while your hands are clenched around resentment. It took time. This wasn't an overnight transformation, but gradually, she began to change her inner conversation. Instead of 'he ruined my life,' she began to say, 'I give thanks for the divine plan of abundance and right action in my life.' Instead of 'how will I survive,' she said, 'infinite supply is my divine heritage. I am provided for.' Within 6 months, she received an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew. Within a year, she had started a small business that thrived. Within 2 years, she had met a man who cherished her and loved her. Children as his own. Magic? No. Law. Spiritual law, as reliable as gravity. You see, she stopped blocking her good with her words. She stopped using her creative power against herself. And this is what I want you to understand with every fiber of your being. Your words are not idle. They are not meaningless sounds you make with your mouth. They are creative agents. They are forces. They are setting into motion the very circumstances of your life. When you complain, you create more to complain about. When you speak lack, you magnetize lack. When you rehearse your failures, you program yourself for more failure. But when you bless, you create more to bless. When you speak abundance, you open the channels for abundance. When you declare your divine inheritance, you claim it. I remember a woman who came to me consumed with worry. Her financial situation looked bleak, but worse than that, she worried about worrying. She said, "I try to be positive, but the fear keeps coming back. Am I sabotaging my own demonstration?" I said to her, "Don't fight the fear. That's just another form of resistance. Instead, practice the instant reply. The moment a fearful thought appears, replace it immediately with the truth. When fear says, 'You'll lose everything,' you say instantly, 'God is my supply, and his supply is infinite and immediate.'" She began this practice. Every single fearful thought was met with an instant declaration of truth. Within days, something shifted. Not just in her circumstances, though those did shift. An unexpected check arrived. A client returned. An opportunity opened. But more importantly, something shifted in her. The fear lost its grip. She had trained her mind to return to truth so quickly that fear couldn't take root. This is your work now. Not to be perfect. Not to never have a negative thought, but to become so quick with truth that error has no time to manifest. The final truth I want to leave with you is this. Your word has been your prison, and your word will be your freedom. You have been speaking for years, perhaps decades, and every word has been law in your life. The complaints have demonstrated as limitation. The criticisms have demonstrated as broken relationships. The doubts have demonstrated as failure. The fears have demonstrated as the very things you feared. But this power that imprisoned you is the same power that will free you. Your word is not just powerful, it is the power in your life. There is no other. Circumstances don't have power. People don't have power over you. The economy doesn't have power. The past doesn't have power. Only your word, spoken in alignment with divine truth, has power. And here's the liberating reality. You can begin speaking differently right now. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready, not when circumstances improve. Right now, this very moment. The next words out of your mouth can be words of freedom, words of abundance, words of love, words of perfect health. You don't have to wait until you feel better to speak the truth. You don't have to postpone your freedom until circumstances change. Your word has authority. Now, in the midst of chaos, in the presence of apparent limitation, in the face of every seeming obstacle. This is the secret the masters have known throughout the ages. Your word spoken in faith rearranges the invisible particles of substance that surround you. It sets forces in motion that were dormant. It opens doors that appeared permanently sealed. I've watched people transform their entire existence with one powerful declaration. A woman who had been ill for years suddenly stood up and said, "I am healed now in Christ." And health rushed through her body like a river that had been dammed and finally set free. Not tomorrow. Not gradually. Now. A man drowning in debt looked at his empty bank account and declared, "God is my unfailing supply. Abundance flows to me now from expected and unexpected sources." Within days, money came from directions he never anticipated, not because he manipulated anything, but because he aligned his word with truth. Your word is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between the spiritual realm of infinite possibility and the physical world of manifestation. When you speak, you are literally calling things forth from the unseen into the seen. So I ask you again, what are you calling forth? What are you declaring over your life, your health, your relationships, your finances? Are you speaking limitation or freedom, lack or abundance, sickness or health, fear or faith? Every time you open your mouth, you cast a vote for the life you will experience. And here's what most people never realize. The universe doesn't judge your words. It doesn't decide whether you're worthy or not. It simply responds. It simply says yes to whatever you persistently declare with conviction and feeling. This is why the ancient texts tell us to decree a thing and it shall be. Established. Not hope for a thing, not wish for a thing, not beg for a thing. Decree it, command it, speak it into being with authority. You are not a beggar at the door of life. You are a child of the divine, created in the image and likeness of the Creator. You have been given dominion, not someday, not in another lifetime, now, today, this very moment. So, what will you decree? What new world will you speak into existence starting today?